You ever have one of those moments where you think, well, that's it. Now I've seen everything. That's exactly what ran through my head the morning I found my grandfather's old log cabin burning to the ground, thanks to the homeowners association. Yeah, I'm dead serious. Arson. They actually torched my place. You want to talk about overreach? That's a whole new league. My name's Owen Baxter, and this is the story of how I didn't just survive the most crooked HOA you could imagine. I wiped it off the map. So, let's back up a second. This all kicked off right after I inherited Grandpa's cabin. That cabin wasn't even in the HOA's precious little kingdom, but that didn't stop Harriet Whitmore, president and self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac, from showing up at my door with a clipboard like she was the sheriff in town. Owen, your cabin is an eyesore. It doesn't fit the aesthetic standards of this community, she says, nose so high in the air I'm amazed she could see over it. I just laughed. It's not in your community, Harriet, but she's persistent. It's close enough that it affects our property values. You see what I was dealing with, right? She actually had the gall to tell me I had to renovate or tear it down. Not a chance, lady. That's when the harassment started. Letters in the mailbox, threats, fines that didn't even make sense. One day, my truck tires got slashed. Then, like magic, my mail stopped coming. Every morning, one of her lackeys stood on the curb snapping pictures of my place like he was auditioning for CSI. Suburbia. The real kicker? One afternoon, I find a bright orange notice of demolition nailed to my tree. Some nonsense about being unsafe per HOA regulations. I tore it down, marched right over to Harriet's place, and told her flat out she was breaking the law. She smiled, sweet as poison. Oh, I'm afraid you're mistaken. We have the right to enforce community standards. I let her know, touch my property and you'll meet my lawyer. Didn't matter. A week later, it happened. I woke up to sirens, sprinting outside barefoot, heart pounding, only to see the whole cabin going up in flames. Decades of family memories swallowed by smoke. And Harriet? Standing on her porch with a mug of coffee, watching the show like it was Saturday morning cartoons. Firefighters did what they could, but it was gone. One of them, a guy named Pete, pulled me aside and said, this wasn't an accident. There was accelerant. Somebody wanted this place gone. I could feel the rage in my bones. The next morning, the HOA sent a letter. Since the unsafe structure has been removed, we trust you'll maintain your property in accordance with HOA guidelines. They thought they'd won. They had no clue who they were dealing with. For a few days, I played it cool, let them think I was beaten. Meanwhile, I called up a private investigator, Frank Nolan, old Marine, rough around the edges, exactly the kind of guy you want when you're facing a small-town mafia in sweater vests. I didn't trust the local cops. Harriet's tentacles reached everywhere. Frank didn't even blink when I told him what happened. This wasn't some punk with matches. If it was your HOA, they left a trail. While Frank dug for dirt, I started sniffing around the HOA's books. Turns out, it wasn't just Harriet being a control freak. She and her buddies were lining their own pockets. HOA dues went up every year, but nobody could say where the money actually went. Best part? I discovered the HOA wasn't just a neighborhood association. It was technically a corporation. That meant I could buy shares. Yeah, you see where this is going. Quietly, I started reaching out to neighbors. Folks tired of Harriet's nonsense. People hit with ridiculous fines for things like lawn gnomes or wind chimes. I offered to buy their shares, and guess what? I wasn't the only one who wanted Harriet gone. Over a few weeks, I went from outcast to majority shareholder. Meanwhile, Frank came through big time. He got hold of security footage from a neighbor's camera. You could see a black SUV rolling up to my cabin the night before the fire, 2 guys hauling gas cans. They dodged most of the cameras, but Frank's contacts tracked the SUV's plate straight to an HOA board member. That's all it took. The fire marshal reclassified the fire as arson, and the cops opened a formal investigation. Suddenly, I had leverage. Time to play my hand. I called an emergency HOA meeting. Harriet tried to block it, but with over 50% voting power, she couldn't. The whole neighborhood showed up. People were restless, suspicious, ready for answers. I walked up, laid out every dirty secret I'd found. Missing funds, illegal fines, vacation charges billed to the HOA's account. I even had copies of emails, Harriet and her cronies using HOA money for personal trips. The room went silent. Then I rolled the tape, the SUV in my cabin, gas cans and all. Dead. Silence. Before Harriet could sputter out an excuse, I dropped the bomb. By the way, I'm a new majority owner. Effective immediately, the board is dissolved. She tried to protest, but I had the paperwork. Then, timing is everything. The police officers I'd quietly invited stepped in with warrants. Harriet and her cronies in handcuffs? You've never heard a room cheer so loud. She shouted about revenge, but nobody was buying it anymore. With the old guard gone, I took control, and my first act was to abolish the HOA. No more petty rules, no more power trips, no more fines for hanging a flag or painting your door the wrong shade of beige. The relief was instant. And the cabin? Insurance payout let me rebuild bigger and stronger. Harriet tried to destroy me, but all she did was set herself on fire. She and her whole corrupt crew ended up behind bars, their little empire reduced to nothing. But you know what? Wiping out the HOA didn't magically fix everything. The finances were a disaster. Years of phony maintenance fees, fake invoices, and missing cash. I brought in a forensic accountant. The stuff she found, wow. Harriet had been funneling cash into her personal accounts for years, even setting up a shell company to buy out neighbors' houses dirt cheap and flip them for profit. I handed it all to the DA. More charges, more court dates. News broke. Harriet might never see daylight again. Word spread. People came out of the woodwork. Neighbors who'd never spoken up before, telling stories of fines for unapproved flower pots, threats, even blackmail. One hit me hardest. The Whitmans, sweet couple, lived here 30 years. Harriet hammered them with fines, all because she wanted their corner lot for her little empire. I made it right, got their bogus penalties wiped and their property secured. Not everybody was happy, of course. Harriet's cronies tried to stir up trouble. Rumors, vandalism, petty sabotage. Tools went missing, my truck got sugared. But I was ready. Hidden cameras caught them red-handed. I just walked up and handed them the stills, didn't say a word. By sunset, both houses were up for sale. Turns out, a little sunlight scares away more rats than poison ever could. As the weeks rolled on, the neighborhood changed. No more fear, no more paranoia. Without the HOA sucking everyone dry, folks had money to fix up their places, start gardens, help each other out. Kids played in the park again, the same park Harriet once banned for being too noisy. We even had a block barbecue to celebrate the new beginning. But Harriet's story didn't just end here. After the local news picked it up, other neighborhoods started coming forward with their own HOA horror stories. Turns out, Harriet had run similar scams in 2 other towns. Her downfall was front-page news, a warning for anyone thinking about following her footsteps. A judge ruled it was organized fraud. More restitution, bankruptcy, the works. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Even after the HOA was dead and buried, a few of Harriet's diehards tried to form a community council, like putting lipstick on a pig. I showed up to their first meeting, laid out the facts. HOA's gone, and if anyone tried to resurrect it, I'd be there. Nobody argued. A few moved away. The rest finally blended in as just regular neighbors. So, that's how a cabin fire turned into the liberation of a whole community. My new place stands stronger than ever. A reminder that no one, not even the nastiest HOA, can take away what's rightfully yours. And as I sit on my porch, friends dropping by just because they want to, watching the sunset overland my family's own for generations. I can't help but wonder, was it all worth it? Let me toss that to you. What would you have done in my place? Stand your ground or walk away? Ever tangled with an HOA yourself? Or dealt with petty power gone wild? Drop your story in the comments. I want to hear about it, because around here, we don't let tyrants win, and we sure as hell don't forget when justice gets served.